أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والعاقبة للمتقين والجنة للموحدين والنار للملحدين، والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين خاتم النبيين رحمة للعالمين طه وياسين بالقاسم محمد.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد
وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين المنتجبين، ورحمة الله على محبيهم ولعنة الله على أعدائهم أجمعين من يومنا هذا إلى يوم الدين، لا سيما على بقية الله في العرضين وحجته على العالمين. اللهم عجل فرجه وقرب زمانه وكثر أنصاره وأهلك أعداءه. أما بعد، فقد قال الله سبحانه وتبارك في كتابه الحكيم وفرقانه المجيد وقوله الحق: بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل لا أسألكم عليه أجرا إلا المودة في القربى. صلوات النبي وعلى آله.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
Sheikh Hasnain, sisters and brothers, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. First of all, before I begin my discussion, I want to first apologize for not knowing the Swedish language, otherwise I would have been honored or better to speak to you in your own language, in the language that is most prevalent. It is my own shortcoming, one of my many, that I am only familiar with English, comfortable with English to give these kinds of talks, so please forgive me for that, inshallah. Secondly, I wish to thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and my respected brother Jarrah for giving me this chance to be with all of you today. It is an honor and it is a pleasure for me to spend this time. And of course it would be unjust if I don't mention my rides, Sheikh Hasnain and brother Sibtain, who will be inshallah taking me back and have brought me here. And of course all of you for coming to listen to me on this important day, in these important days of Muharram, and especially today being the day that it is. Inshallah tomorrow is, I understand, a bank holiday, but some of you did have to work today, so Allah will give you the ajr for spending this time with us. When we look at the whole message of Islam, and I'm just going to talk about one or two things before we have the opportunity to have questions and answers, inshallah. And I'm just very, very pleased when I see the enthusiasm and the dedication from all of you. I'm truly indebted and grateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that inshallah the message of Ahlul Bayt will continue on for a long time, even when my generation has left this world and has passed away. So I'm very pleased to see the enthusiasm, the excitement in the youths, in the young brothers and sisters that I see in front of me today, and even in the last few days leading up to this chance that you have given me today, for which I'm very, very thankful. The amount of stamina that I have seen and I have known about when I've spoken to others, may Allah reward you all for that, because this is one of the duties that we have. This is one of the important responsibilities that we have, especially while our Imam is in occultation, while our Imam is in ghaibah. This is something that we have to make sure that the message of Islam, we being the representatives of Islam, we being the representatives of the Imam, or the message of the Imam, have got to make sure that it stays alive and it stays with the people. And we bear that responsibility of making sure it's conveyed. One of the things that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam has been quoted as saying, the Prophet talks about us appreciating various things before various things. So the Prophet says that appreciate your health before sickness comes to you. There's 5 things that Rasulullah was telling Abu Dhar, one of his close companions, that Ya Abu Dharr, oh Abu Dhar, keep 5 things in mind, appreciate them before 5 things happen. And the Prophet started out by saying that appreciate your health that you have before an illness strikes you. And you see what a ni'mat from Allah, what a grace from Allah it is when we have our good health, when we have our ability, that our bodies are okay, we're strong, we're able to move and everything. If an illness was to hit, and if you ask anybody in the elders or in the community who might have had a stroke, who might have had a heart attack, who might have had some sort of a cancer, may Allah protect us, may Allah give us shifa inshallah, but you will see how much they value whatever little they may be able to do, and how they will tell us that value your health, because if you get a heart attack, if you get something, a stroke that has paralyzed you, disabled you, or made some bodily function not being able to move, you will be able to understand how important it is for all of you to have this movement, this ability, and this health that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us. Then the Prophet tells Abu Dhar, appreciate your leisure time before you become busy. We have time now. I know many of you are going to school, or maybe working part-time, but still you have some time in between that could be considered as leisure time. And that leisure time is something that has to be appreciated and valued, because I've seen one thing in the Western world, more so than perhaps the Eastern world that I've been able to have a chance to appreciate and live into, that time is very valuable. And in some cases, time becomes more valuable than money. I know that in many of the communities that I go to, if you ask the community, if you ask the majma who's sitting there, and on your way out, please give $5 for this, or give $10 for this, most of the people will give it. But if you ask them that, next week, we need 1 hour of your time, please come to the Husainiya, come to the Markaz, come to the center, vacuum, paint, help out, clean, take the garbage out. They'll say, no, I'll give you $10, go find somebody to clean for you. I'll give you $5, I'll give you $20, leave me alone because I don't have time. I don't have time. And one of the things that Islam has taught us in this issue of leisure time is that a lot of these activities, while it sounds easy and it sounds more fun, okay, here's 100 krona, find somebody who might come and do this for 1 hour. I don't know what the wages are here. I'm just giving an example of what I've been able to see. I think 100 krona might be too much money, but I'm not sure. But if it's a 1 hour job, people get it. But a lot of times the thawab or the ajr from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is to do the job ourselves. Like when, for example, Allah gives us an opportunity, if we have got a chance to sort of, for example, clean up the Husainiya, the masjid, the markaz, the center whenever we come. I mean, we take this as the house of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There is no less importance in us helping to clean up or to keep clean this place as it would be, for example, in Medina or Makkah Mukarramah. So if you see a tissue on the floor, if you see something that is on here, something that is dirty, and we help pick that up, this is making value of our time that we have got from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that ajr will be the same as the ajr as we go into a major masjid or another holier place and we do something similar there. The thawab will be the same from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, inshallah. When we see that, and we make use of that time that we have, instead of just throwing that responsibility, well, somebody else will do it. Brother Jarrah is there, let him do it. He has to look after that. Or one of the sisters, they say, oh, let her do that. That's not my job to do. We have to all make sure all of our job is there to do. All of us have to play a role in making sure that the job gets done, whatever the job is, whether it is arranging, whether it is setting up, whether it is cleaning, whether it is decorating, whether it is putting the things on, taking them out after the days of Muharram. So whatever time that we have, this is an amana from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is a trust from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the Prophet says, appreciate it and use it while you have it, before a time comes when you become busy. And those who are single will be able to appreciate one thing, or may not be able to appreciate what leisure time is right now. Those of us who are married, you will see that after that your responsibilities increase. So step by step, your timing, and I'm not discouraging anybody from getting married. This is an important subject, very important topic. I encourage everybody to get married. What I'm saying is your time priorities will become different and your time will become less. Your leisure time, your free time will become a lot less than what it is now. So the Prophet says that as you are going, appreciate the things we have. And one of the things that Islam has regularly taught us is to value whatever we have. Whatever things that we have, appreciate it, value it, consider it important. Because whether it's time, our abilities, our talents, our money, our health, whatever we have got, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the Messenger of Allah have told us to appreciate that while we have it in this dunya. And there have been countless people who will tell you that when things really become busy, they wish that they could go back. Sometimes when I'm sitting with a group of not only elders but even my age group, and and that's the late 30s, early 40s, and they'll tell you that I wish I could go back. I wish I could go back to my 20s. And when a child is 14 years old, right? You ask him, "How old are you, son? How old are you, buddy?" They'll say, "I'm almost 16." But you're 14 right now. You're almost 16. Well, first get to 15. No, I'm almost 16. Because I don't know about what the driving age is. What's the driving age here? 18. Oh, Allahu Akbar. No wonder. Okay. That's why you didn't understand what I was saying. In Canada, it's 16. You can get your beginner's license at 16. So it's like everybody's waiting. You ask a 10-year-old, how old are you? I'm almost 16. Not even half the age is crossed. And they say, I'm almost. And you ask a 50-year-old, well, last year I was 49, right? They still want to put that 4 in there. Huh? You ask a 60-year-old, I was 59. So you see, then you go into reverse gear. Then you want to go backwards. When you're young, you want to go forward. And you see, somewhere in between, I don't know where this age changes. Only Allah knows. But from what age do you start going backwards as opposed to wanting to go forward? You see, in the non-Muslim society, they all want to get old because they want to drink and drive and party and all that. So they also want to get into drinking age is 19 in our province. So they want to get to that age. And so we see that age is something that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us as a trust, just like everything else. Then the Prophet, when he was talking to Abu Dhar, he says, value or take advantage of the money that you have, the cash that you have, the funds that you have, before a time comes that you become poor, before poverty. Before your poverty hits, make sure you value the money that you have. Because right now you may have money, there may be a day coming that this may change, this may not be there with you anymore. And again, when you're reading the news, I'm sure all of you are quite up to date on the internet or on the Yahoo News or MSN News, and you're seeing economic turmoil, economic problems. There are people who maybe 6 months ago might have been millionaires or billionaires, and all of a sudden when the markets crash, when the stock market hit, when there was a problem, all of a sudden that money that they supposedly had became zero. And one of the things that happens in North America, and I'm sure Europe as well, maybe more so in Europe than in North America, is that when economic crisis or financial situations become difficult, the people start committing, they get anxiety filled, they start committing suicide, they kill themselves, they hurt themselves, they go insane. Some people get hospitalized because they've gone so crazy. So one of the things that Islam has taught us, don't consider your money or your wealth as everything. At the same time, value it while you have it. So Amirul Mu'mineen alayhi salatu wasalam has been quoted as saying, Imam Ali alayhi salam has been quoted as saying that when something comes to you, when you become rich, for example, when you get a big contract or a job that pays you well, don't become overly happy. Thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but don't become overly excited or overly happy. In the same way that when something is lost from you, when you lose, say, your money, or you lose something, or you lose your property or something, don't become overly sad about it. Because whatever is in your haqq, you will receive. You have to try. You have to make your efforts. You have to try to find a good job. You have to try and find good income. You have to try and find good contracts and contacts. But at the same time, at the end of the day, remember that you try your best, leave Allah to the rest. You do whatever you can, then you do tawakkul on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So don't become overly happy if something, a windfall comes to you. And don't be overly sad if you lose something. And if you follow that advice of Imam Ali, you will see that why would you worry then? Why would you have suicide? Why would you not have tawakkul or trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Because Allah has already promised you something that He's going to give you. And so when we see that the Imam, practically telling us that this anxiety that we see around the non-Muslims, around the Western society, is something that is dangerous. It is killing them. In the Eastern world, in India or in Africa, people are dying because they don't have food to eat. They don't have medicine that can give them shifa. You see what is happening in the Gaza. It's a human-inflicted tragedy that is happening. And yet, you see that this is something that is forced upon them. This murder is forced upon them. In Africa, there's no food to eat. In much parts of India, there's no medicine that they can get. So the people are dying because of these reasons. And then in North America, people are dying because they're killing themselves. They're killing themselves. Despite we having so much more money than anybody else in the world, we're having much more conveniences than anything else, people are still dying. What happens? They think that their money, their wealth was everything. If the wealth is gone, they feel that they've lost everything. They just want to kill themselves. And so we see that Islam has taught us, the Ahlul Bayt have taught us, this money is also an amanat from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So value it while you have it before poverty comes, Rasulullah said. Then the fourth thing Rasulullah says to Abu Dhar, he says, value your youth before your old age. And this is the reason why I brought this hadith to my sisters and brothers today, that being a gathering of youth, what a valuable gift that you have, what a valuable thing you have right now, that you ask any senior citizen, they'll tell you, and even if you're not a senior citizen, even if you're an older youth like me, inshallah, right, I'll tell you, your age, your group, what you have now is something very valuable, and use it for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because again, Imam Ali alayhi salam says, Allah loves your ibadat more than He loves the ibadat of an old man like me, who will, when one foot is already in the qabr. You guys have got so many other things to do. If you ask an old man, an elderly man, they'll spend there's so much time at the mosque, even at the Hussainiyah, the masjid, you'll see, they'll be the first ones there, half an hour before the program starts, they'll be sitting there. Half an hour after the program ends, and I'm not saying this disrespectfully, please don't, what stays, please keep this here, okay? Because, they have nowhere else to go. Right? They have nothing else to do. So half an hour before the program, they'll be sitting there. And yet, you look at the youth, there's 10,000 things you can do. On a weekend, you can be going out. Today, Monday night, you could be doing 10 other things. You could be watching something on the television. You could be on the internet. You could be doing your Wii or your Nintendo or your PlayStation. I don't know. What do you guys do for leisure here? I'm just giving you what we do in Canada, right? Although I don't know how to play these games. My son tries to teach me, and it's like he teaches me in 30 seconds, and it's out. So you've got this other things to do, and yet you take that time and you come here. Imam Ali says Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves that. If an old woman, again, I love elderly women, I have no problems, but if an elderly woman, 75 years old, starts wearing hijab, alhamdulillah, Allah will reward her for that. But it's a different hijab than if a 16-year-old or a 14-year-old or a 9-year-old who has become baligha, she wears hijab. If an old man at 80 starts doing his salat and his psalm and everything, good, alhamdulillah, but you're going to be going any day now, right? I'm just as a general, I'm not just saying old people die. In my own community in Kitchener, where I live in a small city called Kitchener, which is about an hour from Toronto, if you go to our cemetery there, you will find every 10-year age group, from a 6-month-old baby that we have buried there to a 99-year-old lady who's buried there, and every 10-year group in between. So we have got like the 6-month-old baby, we've got a 5-year-old there, a 10-year-old there, we've got an 18-year-old buried, we've got a 29-year-old, we've got a 34-year-old, we've got a 41-year-old. So every decade group that you have in our cemetery, which is a small community, a small Shia community that we have got every 10-year age group right up until 100 years old. So it's not like Malakul Maut, the angel of death, only goes to old people and takes them away. He can take any of us away. What I'm saying is, statistically, old people are more likely to go than young people. In fact, in Toronto, I was just telling a few people this yesterday, at the masjid, in the most famous or the most well-known masjid of the Shias is known as Bayview, the Ja'fari Islamic Center. So, they have a row in the back where all the elderly people sit. They're all chairs. We are young, we sit on the floor, right? But they have that place there. So some of the youngsters, they refer to that area as the departure lounge. That any time, inna lillahi wa inna ilaihi, somebody's number is going to come up. So just statistically, I'm saying, because there's no hard and fast rule that only old people will die. No, we know. I'm sure all of you sitting here have known or know of some youngsters, whether it's a car accident, whether it's a natural disaster, whether it's cancer, something or another takes any age group away. But the thing is that youngsters have got more things to do and are more apt to have a longer life. And yet, when you serve Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Imam Ali says, that's what Allah loves. That is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He loves your ibadat. Why? Because you have got things to do, but you've dedicated your life to Allah. You dedicate your time to Allah. And that is what it means when Rasulullah says that value your youth. This is probably one of the few places in the world that I've gone to speak where they don't have a clock in front of the Maulana to see what time it is and how he's speaking. So I'll have to just take my phone out, not to use it, but just to see the time, inshallah. I have a few more minutes to speak and then a question answer. Jazakallah. Huh?
50.
Okay. 50 or 15? Okay. See, Maulanas will hear 50. So be careful. Even if you've said 15 very loudly, we will hear 50. So the last thing, of course, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam has told Abu Dhar is value your life before death. So 5 things again, if we recap. I think instead of me speaking, let's have some of you respond, right? If you were really listening to me. 5 things Rasulullah said to Abu Dhar, value before 5 other things. So how about we share it with all of you today? I want some of you to answer. Whoever remembers. Youth before? Elder age.
Richness before poverty.
Jazakallah, your wealth before poverty.
Your
Health before illness. Jazakallah khair. Are sisters also allowed to answer? Or okay. If my sisters want to brave the curtain and still try and answer, by all means. Sorry? Leisure time. Very good one. Thank you. Jazakillah. And the last one? Jazakallah. Well, life before death, please. Well, actually, you are half right. وَخَلَقَ الْمَوْتَ وَالْحَيَاةَ لِيَبْلُوَكُمْ أَيُّكُمْ أَحْسَنُ عَمَلًا. So yes, Allah says that death was created before life, but as far as we are concerned, Rasulullah told Abu Dhar, life before death, inshallah. Unless we're all spirits here, you're going to scare me. Remember, I live in the masjid right now, so be careful what you say to me. Otherwise, I'll start phoning you at 4 in the morning and I'm scared. Anyway, so that is what the message of the Rasul was to Abu Dhar alayhi rahmah. I think my second part of what I was going to say tonight, I'm going to keep it on hold until we finish some of the questions, because I was just going to talk about a little bit about, not the youth and destiny and things like that. So what level of freedom we have. So I think I'll keep that a little later, depending on the time, and I'll open it up to questions if my respected brother Jarrah is okay with that. That way, at least I think we'll probably learn more, inshallah. So if there is some questions, let us inshallah try and answer them. I don't have all the answers. I'll just try to answer them, inshallah, bi-idhnillah. So if you want to write it, if you're shy to ask, that's fine as well, sisters or brothers. Inshallah, mashallah, please. That question I can answer. Oh my gosh, mashallah. Jazakallah khair. Thank you. Thank you. Yes. Oh, okay, thank you. Yes, my Swedish is not very good. My Swedish is 0 actually. Except for tak.
It's should I translate word by word?
Or I think the message would be fine, inshallah, please.
It's about actually the testimony that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam wanted to write at the death.
Yes.
So the question is about how come if Rasulullah knew Umar, the second caliph, how come that and he should have known that Umar will act this way. How come he didn't write his testimony in front of other people than Umar?
Okay.
Is that right? And
yes, please. Okay. Jazakillah. Thank you very much. This is a very important question, of course, and please don't worry if the questions are in Swedish. My respected brother will be just summarizing the question for me, and if we have not understood the question, or if I have not answered it, please feel free to speak it out so that at least I can be clear as well. One of the things that we have to remember is, and for those who might maybe not know or not remember the historical narration, what had happened at the time, and this is obviously it's history, so everybody has accepted this, that when the Prophet was very ill at the time of just him passing, just before he was passing away, this is the last Thursday in the month of Safar, when the Prophet was about to leave this world, the Prophet basically was surrounded by his companions, and he had asked for some pen and paper. In fact, in my discussion yesterday as well, I didn't get a chance to finish this at the Zainabiyya Center, but the Prophet basically asked for pen and paper, and he wanted to say that I want to write down something as my last will or my last testimony so that you don't go astray after I leave this world. And at that time, Omar had said that he is hizyan, he's got fever, he's got temperature, and basically he's not a full mind, basic. And then there was commotion. Some companions says, give him pen and paper. Some says, no, he's not well, he's just talking out of nonsense, na'udhu billah. And basically there became a very big debate, an argument, and a very loud argument, at which time the Prophet just told everybody to get out. Okay, so he never got that chance. Now, before that, you have to also understand that the Prophet on numerous occasions, and Sahih Muslim as well as Sahih Bukhari both narrate this, that on numerous occasions the Prophet would actually look at Abu Bakr or look at Umar, not so much Uthman, because Uthman's situation was a bit different, but would look at these two and say, just make sure you stay on the right path before I leave. Only Allah knows what you're going to do before I leave. Because one thing to remember is that these were people who tried to or pretended to or were in actuality very physically close to the Prophet. They would sit with the Prophet, they would visit him, they would go with him. So when a foreigner or somebody else would come, they would always see, for example, Abu Bakr by the Prophet. So they would think that, the Prophet must be close to him. And sometimes, Zakirin or ulama, and even amongst the Maraja, you will see there are people there who have their own reasons for being there. If you look at today's example, and maybe most of you probably weren't even born at the time of the beginning of the revolution in Iran in the late 70s. And there was one person who would always be sitting with Imam Khomeini. His name was Abul Hassan Bani Sadr. In fact, he's in Paris right now, if I'm not mistaken. Is he still alive? He is, I'm afraid so, okay. Anyways, inshallah, one day he'll go to his Allah and answer for what has happened. But basically, he was with Imam Khomeini in Paris. He would sit with the Imam regularly. On the flight from Paris to Tehran, when the Imam was returning back to the Islamic Republic, at that time it wasn't yet an Islamic Republic, he was with the Imam on the plane. He took his Nahj al-Balagha, and he was sitting with Imam Khomeini saying, we'll do this, what Imam Ali is. And the Imam, didn't say anything. Imam Khomeini didn't say anything, because this was the same parallel as the time of the Prophet. So there were some people who made themselves available, and many Maulanas, you will see this as well, that people will be close to, I'm not talking about it here, okay, so don't start getting worried, okay, brother. But what we're saying is that the people had their own intentions, that if he becomes powerful, I'll get a post. If he becomes famous and rich, I'll get this and that. And this basically was what they saw at these early phases. Omar was known throughout his whole life to be a very temperamental person, to be a very thoughtless person, to be a very, very vicious person. Not only with fellow Muslims, but with anybody, with everybody. I mean, the akhlaq that Islam taught us was completely there. And in fact, even at Saqifa, after he had been a Muslim for many years, supposedly, with the Prophet's demise, he actually at Saqifa said that anybody who doesn't do allegiance to Abu Bakr, I will cut off his head. I mean, in the middle of that election, you make a threat like that. So even those who didn't want to do bay'at, they ended up doing bay'at. So you can see, in fact, those of you who know his history, his main job was to go kill his sister because she had become Muslim. That was when he was about to go, and something happened, and he changed his mind, and he decided not to kill his sister, and basically, supposedly, he accepted Islam and all that. So he was known as a very vicious, temperamental man. So the Prophet constantly would rebuke him. Now, the question arises that why did the Prophet then still marry Omar's daughter or Abu Bakr's daughter Aisha and Hafsa? And in actuality, what the situation was, when you talk about marriage today and the importance of marriage, and you see what has happened in the Prophet's lifetime, you see that the Prophet was 54 years old when he married Aisha, who was 9 or 10. Okay, so this actually becomes a source of ridicule for Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And in the Western world, some stupid American writers have actually called the Prophet a pedophile and all kinds of very horrible names. But in actuality, Abu Bakr forced Aisha on the Prophet. The Prophet said, "I can't marry her." And think about it for a moment. That's young enough to be his granddaughter. Forget about his wife. So the Prophet he refused. He didn't want it. But Abu Bakr said, "No, I want to have the relation. If you don't marry her, I'm not going to let her marry anybody else." He made a lot of very silly arguments, basically forcing the Prophet to marry her. Same thing with Omar. Basically they wanted that position that, he'll be my father-in-law, so I can tell him off. I can tell him, he'll be my son-in-law, so I can tell him what to do. I can, everybody, like I said, had their own motives. So, if my daughter is in that house, I have some control over my son-in-law. I have some, that control over my daughter-in-law. So this was the reason. So by the time that the Prophet had asked, and remember, on at least 15 occasions throughout his time, not only from Makkah at Dhul Ashira, but also in the various battles, especially the Battle of Badr, the Battle of Hunayn, the Battle of Khaybar, where the Prophet had announced, that Allah loves him, he loves Allah. And the standard, the alam, was given to Ali. So at every point the Prophet made it known that Ali was the one that was the closest to the Prophet and the one who was authorized. In Hajjatul Wida, the final Hajj, finally he made that last announcement of Man kuntum mawlahu fahada aliyun mawla, that this Ali is their mawla. So now by the time that the Prophet's wafat came, or just before the shahadat of the passing of the Prophet, the situation had become such that those who knew Imam Ali was the Khalifa, but there was still an effort on the part of the others that, okay, Ali is going to be the religious, supreme sort of knowledgeable person, but we need somebody for the political arena. So when the Prophet wanted to write this down and this commotion or this argument took place, that time, even if the Prophet would have written something down, they wouldn't have been accepted that he wrote it. If you write a will, for example, in insanity, or if you're not well, or if you do it under pressure, duress, then obviously even in North American or in Western society, that is considered as a flawed will. The same thing would have happened to the Prophet. So even if he would have written anything, it wouldn't have been accepted by the majority of the Ummah for this reason, that they would have all listened to what Umar had said, and for that reason, it would have been rejected. So thank you for that question. The other one that I have here, what I'll do is I'll take one written question and one verbal question. So I'll just finish this written one, inshallah. You're talking about time and youth, taking care of blessings. What is the best you can do with these blessings? Please give us practical examples. Well, alhamdulillah, one of the things that the sister herself, or if it's a brother, I'm not sure where this one came from, but if it is a sister, of course, coming to the Al-Mahdi activities is a very important part of maximizing these blessings from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for our own akhirat, okay? Participating here regularly. And I'll tell you one thing, what is more or just as important as participating is, okay, for example, we've got, mashallah, a good group of youth boys. I'm sure that we have just as many sisters on the other side. Not only bring yourself, but bring somebody with you. Encourage a friend. Remind them that it's not just a lecture, it's not just a religious thing that, you all have to start wearing, long beards and long dress outfits and everything, but try and make it a social environment as well. Have some good discussions, talks, and have some fun activities as well. I'm not sure to what extent the Al-Mahdi youths are doing, but I know you've had some skiing trips, you've had some weekend outings or whatever. Just continue that, do some more, and help out. Like, be involved in planning this together. I mean, make it structured. Don't just everybody do their own thing and then you've got 15 different Al-Mahdi youth activities. Let's do it all together, constructively and coherently, so that we can make it fun for the youths. And each of those 5 things that Rasulullah talked about, your youth and your time, these both can come into this one category, that you're all energetic, you're all young, you all can move fast, so do things, plan things, help each other. One of the things that I was telling the youths at Zainabiyah, that I feel very strongly, we are all preparing, and I hear all of you reciting وَعَجِّلْ فَرَجُهُمْ after you've recited the salawat. May Allah reward you for that. You're all loyal to your imam. Let us take it one step further. For example, let us say that that one of the brothers knows that, let's say I don't pray my Fajr Salat, I make it qadha, I don't wake up on time or whatever. Okay? Make it a point to phone me at Fajr time. Now everybody has a mobile, everybody is, little kids, 7-year-old, 5-year-olds have got mobiles nowadays, I've seen everywhere I go. So, you have your own mobile, so it's not you're going to bother mommy and daddy and your siblings and your others, or maybe actually for Fajr bother them if you have to, but like wake them up, but only if they've asked you to, because the Sharia doesn't allow us to forcefully put Islamic law and make everybody wake up for Fajr and what the Taliban were doing. That's not really in Islam. Or what the Wahhabis do today in Saudi Arabia. But what we're saying is that if you know that, okay, we're all a part of Al-Mahdi youth, we're all a part of each other, we all want to be with Imam al-Zamana, this is one practical example of helping each other towards Amr bil Ma'ruf and helping each other towards becoming a soldier of Imam Sahib al-Amr, Ajjallahu ta'ala dhuhurahu, that help each other like that. That if you, for example, know that I commit one haram, let's say I'm eating you have KFC here? Oh, good. Alhamdulillah. Okay. Anyways, whatever, McDonald's beef burger or whatever, I'm eating that because this is something I really want, I really need. Encourage each other to prevent haram. Encourage each other to do good. These are practical ways of us helping each other, preparing for the Imam, and make it a team of us that would become soldiers of Imam Sahib al-Amr and help. What would an Imam expect of us? In my life, we have to ask each other and ourselves, what would the Imam want from me? What can I contribute to the cause of the Imam while the Imam is in occultation? Remember, we are all just trustees. We are all just working because the Imam is in occultation. So this responsibility is on our shoulders. In Sweden, in Stockholm, in Trollhättan, in Norway, in Finland, in Denmark, in England, and in Canada. We're just trustees. So let us make sure that we are ready. I'll give you an example. I know I'm taking a little long time to answer this question, but I want to make sure that I convey everything. When Khaybar was taken over, the fort of Khaybar, there was so much wealth in Khaybar that one of the companions of Rasulullah, who was so poor, I'll tell you how poor this companion was. Dates. Dates are, in English, in Canada, we say a dime a dozen. You can buy, for 10 cents or 5 cents, maybe for 2 krona, you can buy a whole carton of dates in Arabia, right? Now, there was a companion who was so poor he had not eaten date. That's how poor he was. After Khaybar, then by this time the Muslim Ummah was thousands and thousands of people. After Khaybar, he became so rich from his share that his grandchildren did not have to work. That's how rich he was. So you can imagine what everybody's share was after the fort of Khaybar. Why was Khaybar so rich? It was the Jewish fort. What had happened was, and there was so many armaments, so many bow and arrows, spears, swords, so many, like today we've got tanks and, F-14s and MiGs and all this, right? So in those days they had, swords and bow and arrow. It was so much that every youth in Medina had 3 or 4 weapons. Every youth in Medina, everybody in Medina, okay? Why did they have so much? The Jews had built this fort of Khaybar. Why? Because when they were reading their old scriptures, they were told that the last Messiah or the last Rasul or the most important messenger of God will come in this place that was Yathrib. That was between the 2 mountains, the valley between the 2 mountains, and that was Yathrib. So that's why Medina had a huge Jewish population at the time of Islam. And most of you probably know that more so than anywhere else in the whole Hijaz, Medina had that. Had the population of Jews, and the reason was because they were all told, Jazakallah, that they were all told that the Prophet will come there. So what they wanted to do, what they did was they actually made sure that when the Prophet comes, they can't tell the Prophet, okay, now let's get ready, let's get the soldiers ready, let's get the weapons ready. When the Prophet comes, okay, let's do some fundraising now, let's make sure the Prophet has enough money. They didn't want to do that. They said, we're going to keep everything ready for the Prophet when he comes, so when the Prophet comes, his job will be easier. And what we do is sometimes there's a mental conception in our mind, okay, when the Imam comes, then we'll start doing the fundraising. When the Imam comes, then we'll start getting ourselves ready. I've got qadha salat, I've got some fast I've missed, my sister, my wife, my mother, my daughter, they don't wear hijab. When the Imam comes, I'll tell them to wear hijab. I don't worry about the beard, I don't worry about halal and haram, eating too much, because when the Imam comes, then I'll do that. And Imagine, the Jews were better than us because the Jews actually said, when the Prophet comes, we want to make sure everything is ready. The money is there, the arms are there, the youths are there, the weapons are there, everything is ready. The Prophet just has to lead the movement. We are expecting the Imam to come and start doing everything else. Can you imagine for a moment that if you call me for this session, and then my brothers just say, okay, let's get the Sheikh to help us decorate and put the black curtains up. We for Salat we want to have the curtains, and then we have to put all these azadari, say the shuhada things, and then you say, okay, the first half an hour, 45 minutes, you make me vacuum and all that, and then my lecture is 15 minutes. So inshallah, I don't mind, I'll help you out. But did you call me to vacuum or hoover, or did you call me to give a talk? You see, and that's what we have to ask ourselves. Are we expecting the Imam to come and start everything then, or are we expecting the Imam to just lead the movement whereby we are ready? And that's how we have to be ready, inshallah. Jazakallah. Farajahum, inshallah. I will be going very fast now with the questions, inshallah. Okay, so what?
20 minutes.
20, okay. What happened to the 50? Why did Imam Hussein oppose Yazid and not Muawiyah? The answer to this question is very similar to the answer of the question we talked about why Rasulullah did not, basically openly curse Umar or openly knock out Abu Bakr or anything. Much as it would have been nice to have done that, there are certain things and a certain place and time for everything. And Sheikh, with your permission, I'm going forward with this, inshallah. Okay. So Imam Hussein did not oppose Muawiyah because you see, at the end of the day, Muawiyah presented himself as a Muslim. I mean, he was at the pinnacle of munafiqeen. The nifaq, he had mastered the science of nifaq. They say he was a brilliant politician, a brilliant, cunning man, and he was. If you look at the correspondence that was exchanged between Imam Ali and Muawiyah, Imam Ali would write, min Ali ibn Abi Talib ila al-Muawiyah. From Ali to Muawiyah bin Abi Sufyan, Imam Ali would tell Muawiyah, you should do your wajibat, have taqwa, fear Allah and all that. When Muawiyah would reply to Imam Ali, he would say, min al-Amir al-Mu'minin Muawiyah bin Abi Sufyan ila Ali ibn Abi Talib. And you know what he would write to Imam Ali? He says, Ali, I think you should start fasting. Maybe you should do some prayers. Why do you not fear Allah? Imagine for a moment, somebody reading the correspondence would think, oh my God, Muawiyah is such a pious man and Ali is a kafir, like that. When the word of Imam Ali's shahadat reached Damascus, and they said that Ali was hit while he was doing his morning prayer, the first thing that people of Damascus were talking among themselves, what was Ali doing in the masjid? Ali was a thief, he was a crook, he was a... It's sad for me to say this. These were the conversations that were taking place, that Ali was some sort of, some strange creation. What was he doing in the masjid? So the Imam did not oppose Muawiyah because Muawiyah pretended to be a Muslim. There would have been absolutely no support for the Imam whatsoever. Yazid openly violated the laws of Allah, openly contradicted the law. He drank freely. Muawiyah would drink in his back room, but everybody knew he was drinking, but he was not coming into the open. Yazid openly said, there is no Jannah, there is no Jahannam. Muhammad just did this because he wanted power for his family, he wanted a kingdom for his family. So when things like that became open, and then he demanded bayat openly, that's when Imam had to fight it openly, okay? I heard from more than one scholar that the coming back of a Mahdi is soon. What is my opinion about, do you think about this opinion? This is actually not the opinion of 1 or 2 or 3 or 10 or 50 scholars. My opinion, of course, doesn't matter. But if you were to ask me for my suggestion, it is very near. Not just soon, it is very soon, inshallah. And I'm not saying this out of emotion. I am saying this in fact, and again, this is not something that I'm going to mention on the mimbar in any big community, but the same way that Imam Sahib al-Amr had 2 ghaibats, ghaibat al-sughra and ghaibat al-kubra, the ulama today are of the opinion that the Imam will also have 2 dhuhur. One is known as dhuhur al-sughra, one will be known as dhuhur al-kubra. The dhuhur al-kubra will be the main reappearance where from Makkah he will start, the movement will happen. A very strong opinion of a number of senior ulama today is that we are already in Zuhur al-Sughra. The Imam is taking a much more active role in what is happening in our day-to-day lives, in the Ummah's lives, than at any other point in our Shia history. Of course, we have to be careful how we word this, and that's I'm doing this very cautiously. So, the Imam is playing a much more active role than, he was always playing an active role. I don't even think that Imam was sitting somewhere in a jungle before, and now no, it's not like that. But we see a lot more evidence of miracles happening, of very strange things happening, and of the power of the few believers who are remaining firm. And you can see what Hezbollah was able to do. Don't forget what Hezbollah did in 2006, and what Sayyid Hassan talked about today or yesterday is nothing short of having the dua and the strong support of Imam Sahib al-Zaman Ajjalallahu Ta'ala Dhuhurahu very directly. And so we can see that, especially when you've got a nuclear power that is facing you, a nuclear power like America, these jungles that are out there, we see that there is a very strong force to counter them for that reason, which people were always afraid to. Now, where did the strength come from? So, my sisters, my brothers, please keep ourselves ready at any time. It will come before we even realize it. And inshallah, I am sure. There was one, Ayatollah Gul Paygani, a great marja, in one of his dreams, just before he had passed away, he actually saw a lineup of Salatul Jamaat. And in that Salatul Jamaat, he was saying, Imam was leading, Imam Ma'asum, Imam Sahib al-Amra was leading the Salat, and the Maraja right from Ghaibat al-Sughra, Sheikh Kulaini, Sheikh Mufid, right there, and that whole chain went to the end of that first line, and he had actually seen himself and his contemporaries at the last of that line. So to him, it was also a sign that it is very, very close, inshallah. Inshallah, bi'idhnillah. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. Inshallah, we pray that we will be in the Imam's army till the end of our lives, inshallah. Throughout history, many have claimed to be living in the end of times, Akhir al-Zaman. What concrete evidence, if there's that we living right now are living in that time? Of course, Akhir al-Zaman is what Akhir al-Zaman means, the end of time. When the Imam first went into Ghaiba, he himself had written a letter. In fact, he wrote to Sheikh Mufid a very famous letter in which he says that we are aware of your activities. We know what you are doing. We know what the Ummah is going through. I feel for the Ummah. The Imam wrote a number of letters, even after Ghaibat al-Kubra, to some of his close followers and ulama, as well as muttaqi people, pious people. Now, what makes us living in Akhir Zaman, what makes us of Akhir Zaman is that we can see that not only us and the signs that are there are more prevalent than the signs that have been around at any time. There was always oppression. We know that. There was always dhulm. There was always sinfulness. But we see things changing now, whereby dhulm or oppression is becoming commonly accepted. All these years, in all these decades and centuries, oppression was always seen as oppression. The Banu Abbas or Banu Umayyah did not say that they were not doing dhulm. They knew that they were oppressing the Imam. They knew that they were oppressing the Shias. They knew that they were building the city of Baghdad on the blood of the Sayyids. They didn't hide that fact. They didn't say that this is right. They said that we're going to do this to keep you quiet. We're going to do this to keep you shut. We're going to do this, because we want the power. We want to keep the kingdom and all that. Today, in the last, few centuries or decades more so than centuries, we see like today, the Americans, they don't think they're doing anything wrong. They have Guantanamo Bay, they've got Abu Ghraib, they've got, Palestine by the Israelis. Not one person has said today that we have occupied a whole country. You're talking about, alayhi la'an, Janab Bush, talking about, the thugs of Hamas throwing rockets into Israel. Find out, first of all, that they are throwing rockets into their own country. That's their country. It's not your bloody country. It's not your home. It's not the Jewish home. It's not the Zionist home. And yet nobody's talking about that. So they're doing dhulm, not even acknowledging that they're doing dhulm. That's what's become different. People nowadays commit sins thinking that it's okay. There's a huge movement for homosexuality and lesbian. I mean, right now Canada is one of the 3 countries in the world that allows you to register a marriage, a gay marriage. So there was a time, and I had gone to I had to go to a school board to speak against this issue. I said, if God wanted homosexuality, He would have created not Adam and Eve, but Adam and Steve. But so they're committing sins, not even realizing there's something wrong with this. You see what the difference has been? This is what has been Akhir Zaman. And when you see the Prophet predicting Akhir Zaman, this is what the Prophet had said. That people will commit sins not acknowledging that they're sinning. Before, if I drank alcohol, I would tell Sheikh Hasnain, I'm not drinking, just a touch, I needed it, medicine. Right now I'll come openly in front of him and start drinking my bottle and say, what's the problem? What is it? Allah has created this drink. That's what people say. Allah has created this. Allah created desire in me. I can fulfill it how I want to. Who cares about haram and halal? That's the difference, sisters and brothers. Inshallah. Next, now I'll get to those. I'm sorry, I'm only doing the written questions, although I said, I think let's do one verbal question if there is on the sisters or the brother side, because I've taken too many of the written questions, and I can see that my 20 minutes are probably down to about 6 now. 10? Oh, mashallah. May Allah reward him. He keeps increasing it.
Is there any
verbal questions, please?
Sisters, maybe?
Inshallah.
I wonder, Prophet Isa actually makes one more prophet is going to come, and I have read that after each prophet there are 12 months, and in the case of Isa there are
12 disciples, yeah.
But all of these prophets actually lived at the time of Isa and probably died around 50 years afterwards.
See.
So I wonder who was the wali of this earth after these apostles died, and then 500 years later when our prophets.
Yeah. Okay, Bismillah. This again a very thought-provoking question, because when Hazrat Isa left this world, of course the main deputy Shimon or Simon would have taken that responsibility of being his wali, the 12 disciples, 12 representatives, or at least some, because even after Prophet Musa alayhi salam, the same issue transpired. Yaqub had 12 tribes, so this number as well as this issue comes up repeatedly. What you are referring to from the biblical narration of the prophet that will come unto me, the Bible talks about the comforter, and he also mentions like unto me. Okay, the one who will be like Jesus or like Moses, alayhimus salam, is what the year talks about. So when the Bible is referring to Ahmad, or in the Gospel of Barnabas, where the very clear reference is made to a prophet whose name will be praiseworthy, which is what Muhammad or Ahmad means, that is talking about the major prophet. Keep in mind that at every moment and every time there is always, according to the Ja'fari school of thought, every minute of the time that this earth is existing, there will always be a Khalifa or a Wali of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or Hujjat of Allah on this earth. In every era. The time from Isa to Rasulullah is known as Zamanai Fatarat, and it is an era in which there was no major prophet like the caliber of Prophet Isa, like an Ulul Azam prophet or Hazrat Musa's stature, but there was always a wali or another prophet. Because keep in mind, one of the things that perhaps we don't always understand, an overwhelming majority of the prophets were prophets who were not actually assigned to lead a movement or to do something big. Out of the 124,000 prophets, maybe less than 500 of them out of 124,000 had a responsibility of basically reforming or renewing the Ummah. Some prophets just went for one family. Some prophets just went for one little city like Stockholm or Mashta or something like that. Some prophets just came for themselves. They didn't even have a job to do any tabligh to anybody outside. But if anybody needed it, they could come to that Hujjat of Allah, that Prophet of Allah. So it is not an issue of a major prophet having to be there all the time, but some prophet or wali or a Hujjat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, sister. Thank you. Now I'll get to these questions as well. I think you've summarized them for me. One more. Sorry.
No. Is there any time?
Yes, there is like 5 minutes.
Okay, can I take one question if there's nobody else?
Inshallah.
Bismillah. Okay, Bismillah. What will Imam Mahdi Aghallah expect from us first of all, and what is the actual duty of the Sahaba of Imam Zaman?
Ajjalallah ta'ala. Really, 5 minutes? You're joking, right? MashaAllah, my sisters and brothers are asking me questions that are putting handcuffs on my mouth and my hands. The Imam's expectations. The first thing I'll mention, just from a heart-to-heart talk with my sisters and brothers, is that our own qalb will tell us what the Imam expects from us. You don't need a sheikh or a sayyid to come and tell you what the Imam expects of us. So first stage is, we know what our Imam expects of us. The Imam's army will not be like the Swedish army or the Canadian army, whereby your height is looked at, your weight is looked at, how fast you can run, how well you can hold the gun. These are not things that the Imam is going to look at. The Imam's simple criteria will be our taqwa. What level of our obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is there, and what level of our obedience to the Imam will be there. These two things. Ati Allah wa ati Rasul wa ulul amra minkum. So the obedience to the Imam and the obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will be the main criteria. We will be expected to make sure that our wajibats are fulfilled and our muharramat are refrained from. That, again, I'm putting it very, very simply. Okay, our abilities will also be looked at. One of the things that Islam, and again we often overlook or neglect when we're talking about only the spiritual, Islam also needs, and the Imam will be using the talents of people who are technologically advanced as well. We are told to remain with the times. And again, I wish if some of you were coming to our discussion tonight, I'm going to be talking a little bit about Mi'raj at Zainabiyah. And in that discussion, how the Imam, the followers of the Imam will be those who will be technologically advanced, who are intelligent, who are smart, who know the technology of the time, and who will be with that technology at the time. When the people, for example, the Prophet was talking, or the other Imams were saying, that when our Mahdi comes, when our Qaim comes, he will be sitting in Kufa, but he will know what's happening in China. Okay? People were confused. How does that happen? He will be sitting in Kufa, he'll know what's happening in Southern Africa. People could not understand that. How can you be sitting in one place and know what's happening? Right now, you take, you open up the internet and you take a look at something as simple as Google Maps, or there's Google Earth or Yahoo Earth, something like that. You know exactly what is happening in some part of the world right this moment. There have been many sites that will tell you what is happening in Karbala Mola right now. They have the films, and you can view it anywhere you are sitting in the world. Imam Rada's Haram, they've got this as well. The Americans, mashallah, they've got things that they know what you are doing in your bathrooms without even, so they haven't found Osama yet. but they know Jazakallah. They don't want to find him. Keep that in mind. I don't have time to get into that. This guy would have loved to have shared that with you. But anyway, okay. So this is what the Imam expects of us. Our taqwa, our iman, our obedience to our Allah and our Imam, that is, our loyalty will be tested. So our actions, our knowledge, our technology, our intelligence, all of these things, both deen and dunya, will be inshallah looked at. Jazakallah khair.
The last question.
Okay, Jazakallah khair.
Continue with the Muslims.
I think he also...
Okay.
Inshallah.
Sister, because it's...
Yes, we take the sister.
Okay, we take the... No, we will give the brother a chance. Please, I think he has had his hand up for a while. Yes, sister. Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
Just like you shared, could you please give us some concrete, practical advices on how we can keep the Ummah alive? How can we stay strong together? What can we do except, gathering like this in Muharram? There's not only Muharram in the year.
Yes.
And there's not only Ramadan in the year. I mean, we got 11 more months.
Ahsant. The one practical thing that I'll suggest, inshallah, to my sisters and my brothers, and this is from very personal experiences as well, all of you, please, take Mifatihul Jinan, read Dua Ahad, and in Swedish, do the Arabic, but in Swedish, in English, whatever language you're comfortable with, analyze it, study it, and on a regular basis, if not every day. I know it's difficult for you to get together every day, but sisters and brothers, every week, have a gathering together to discuss something. This Dua Ahad, if you go into depth, there's two versions. One is the Saghir version, one is the Kabir version. Even the Kabir version is only about 3-4 minutes long. Allahumma Rabb al-Nur al-Azim wa Rabb al-Kursi al-Rafi wa Rabb al-Bahr al-Masjur wa Munzil al-Tawrat wa al-Injil wa al-Zabur. Go through that. you will see a lot of things that will change your life, inshallah, and my life as well. I pray that Allah gives me the ability as well. And you will see a lot of practical things of how the Imam is beseeching us to beseech him to stay ready. Constantly be on our guard to judge our actions and our a'mal. One of the things, and I'm just sharing this with you out of humbleness, not of any arrogance. After any discussion, any majlis or anything that I myself have had, I go to a quiet room myself and just pray to Allah that my shortcomings get forgiven and that deed is accepted. No matter what we do in our lives, present it before our Imam, because the Imam gets our amal every Friday. The Imam gets it. My actions might cause my Imam to cry, my actions might cause my Imam to smile and pray for me. If we remember that on an everyday basis, and then on a communal basis, get together once a week and discuss these things. As I said, start with dua ahad, go to the other duas that are related to the Imam. Ilahi azam al-bala, Allahumma kun li waliyik al-hujjat. And you see that you will find automatically a betterment will come into our hearts and into our lives. And I think on a practical level that this is one thing, as well as I had told the sisters the other day as well, that encourage each other on a practical level. Physically, phone each other, call each other, help each other. If you know somebody's going to go towards the wrong, somebody's thought might be the wrong thought, somebody's action might be the wrong action, be together to help that person out in a loving way, the way our Imam would have done it, the way our Mawla would have done it, and inshallah we will see that change in our community collectively and in our own selves individually. Islam wants both of these to go hand in hand to bring us perfection, and that is what we must inshallah strive towards. My time, forgive me sister, but my time does not permit me to go into detail about this, but inshallah if Allah keeps me alive to another time, that Brother Jaran might invite me in another era or in another day or time, I inshallah would love and be honored to spend some time with you. You've got Sheikh Hasnain here as well, and other scholars that I'm sure will be more than willing to help you out. I think they will be the vanguards of keeping the flag and the alam strong, so that we never fail in our responsibilities to the Imam. That responsibility is on their shoulders, and I pray for them, and I ask them to please pray for us as well, inshallah. I'm not passing the buck to him. I'm just saying that right now he is local, and inshallah we are told that from our own ummah to make use of what we have, inshallah. Out of respect, I must ask that brother, please.
Säga någonting relaterat. Han säger, för nu har jag chansen, eftersom man nu pratar om det så vill jag bara säga några ord. I will just say something relating to what you said regarding our activities.
Inshallah, please.
Jag tänkte bara säga några få ord angående våra lördagsträffar som vi har för bröderna och våra söndagsträffar som vi har för systrarna. Vi startade dem för cirka 2 månader sedan, och alltså deltagandet har varit sådär. Jag vet inte varför, men inshallah, jag ber bröder som är här och systrar. Jag vet att systrarna har varit väldigt duktiga. De har haft mycket deltagande på sina träffar, alhamdulillah. Men vi bröder, vi har sackat efter lite, så att inshallah, om ni har möjlighet att komma på lördag, klockan 7 på lördagar här. Vi har hela den här lokalen för oss själva. Vi delar inte om några systrar på andra sidan. Vi och ni bestämmer inshallah vad vi gör här. Så att se det som er egen lokal inshallah. Och om inte vi ser någon kontinuitet, då kanske inte inshallah, då kanske det här försvinner. Vi vet inte. Så att vi kan inte ha den här ekonomiska funding, det här ekonomiska stödet för moskén. Och så har vi bara Muharram-program som folk kommer till. Vi måste kunna få folk att komma varje vecka. Och det är inte, jag vill inte att ni ska komma hit för att lyssna på mig, för att jag kan lära er så mycket, eller Hashim eller någon av de som är med i föreningen, utan för att vi behöver verkligen såna samlingar där vi kan inshallah hjälpa varandra, ge varandra stöd och sådär. Så att jag vill inte prata med er, men ni vet själva, inshallah nästa lördag, kom klockan 7. Jag vill inte se att någon av er är frånvarande, inshallah. Jag vet att lördag är inte så vanligt klockan 7 att man jobbar, så att inshallah.
صلوا على محمد وآل محمد.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
I would like to ask if you could give us some examples of alamat al-dhuhur, if you just could a couple of them.
If I was to give a couple of the alamat al-dhuhur, it would be very subjective as to what just comes to my mind at the time. The alamat, the subject, and again this is an area that I have, alhamdulillah, Allah has given me a chance to do a little bit of research on. one of the most common or famous signs is that there will be 313 believers who will be firm, steadfast, and unwavering. In just relation to this, if I don't know if Sheikh Hastin has come across that movie 313 that has been developed in England. If you get a chance, if the youth haven't seen it, I think it'll be worthwhile for them to see that, inshallah. One of the things that as I was going, I was mentioning that sins will be committed openly. Men will try to imitate women, women will try to imitate men, and there's again a philosophy in explaining this. We will see oppression and injustices abound. There will be the destruction of a number of countries in the Middle East that have been foretold or forecasted, foreshadowed. But we will also know of famine. Close to 1/3 of the world will have gone in famine before the actual dhuhr of the Imam takes place. And again, the reason why I was saying earlier on that this is a time that's very close, you can see what is happening catastrophically both in Africa, in Asia, the food crisis, the economic crisis, and what is happening in not only in the Gaza, in Bosnia, in Kashmir, in Afghanistan and Iraq, but you will see also in the Western world a lot of these things happening as well. These are all alamat that have been noted, that have been mentioned. And of course, why I said that the Imam is taking a more proactive role, or at least I feel that the Imam is much more evident or visible now than at any other time in our at least Shia history, is that it's been narrated that when the Imam returns, not one Shia will be able to say this is the first time they're seeing him. Every mu'min will be able to say, hey, when the Imam returns, I've seen him before. He helped me when I was in difficulty. I was in this problem and he came to help me. Sisters and brothers, not just men, not just ulama, not just ordinary or pious people, even ordinary mu'mineen will have, inshallah, bi'idhnillah, have met the Imam and will have benefited from the Imam physically, practically in their day-to-day lives. So these are just a very small trinkling of the alamat. And again, I will put it, not to burden him, but I will put it on my respected brother Sheikh Hasnain's responsibilities to, inshallah, perhaps go into a little bit of detail whenever you have an opportunity with him, and inshallah go through these and to discover that, inshallah, bi'idhnillah. So I think I will do the masaib, inshallah, bi'idhnillah. A'udhu billahi min shaitanir rajim. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. It was the days of Muharram in the beginning part where our Imam was facing great difficulties from people who were themselves claiming to be Muslims, themselves claiming to be vanguards of Islam, representing the Khalifa who had announced himself as the Khalifa of the Muslims. It was on the 7th of Muharram, my respected brothers and sisters in Islam, that the water was prevented from reaching the camp of the Imam, from the tent of the Imam. When the Imam's delegation, when the Imam's family, friends, companions had first arrived into Karbala on the 2nd of Muharram, they had encamped near the Furat, the Euphrates River. On the 4th of Muharram, Ibn Ziyad had given an order, and Umar Asad had fulfilled this, that move Hussein and his family away from the Furat. They were moved almost 2 to 3 kilometers away from the Furat. And then on the 7th of Muharram, there was an order given by Umar Asad that no more water is allowed to come. The thirst was becoming unbearable, because those who know the Arabian Peninsula know that it becomes very, very hot. The thirst sometimes can become a killing thirst for all those who are there. Even young children were not given water. A kafir could drink from the Furat, the animals could drink from the Furat, but the family of Rasulullah, the family of Imam Hussein was prevented from the water. My dear mourners, all those who are remembering the Imam, on Shabi Ashur, the Imam, the Laylatul Ashura, the night before Ashura, the Imam was going and visiting the various tents. He was listening to the conversation that Hazrat Zainab was having with Muhammad. He was listening to what Farwa was telling Qasim. He was listening to what was transpiring in the various camps, until such time that he came to the camp of Rabab. And when he came to the camp to the tent of Rabab, he saw that Rabab was crying, and she was crying because Imam asked her, "Why are you crying, Rabab?" And she replied, "Mawla, all of the mothers are preparing their children." All of the mothers are preparing their children for tomorrow, for the battlefield, for the day of Ashura. Farwa is telling Qasim to go out and fight. Hazrat Zainab is telling Aun and Muhammad to go and fight tomorrow. All of the mothers are telling their children that make sure they lie down their lives for Imam Hussein. But I am so unlucky. I am so madhluma. I am not able to send Ali Asghar to fight onto the battlefield. I cannot send Sakina because she's a girl. She's not allowed to fight on the battlefield. There will be no sacrifice. There will be no sacrifice from me on the day of Ashura, Mawla. Perhaps Imam Hussein may have wanted to tell her, Rabab, yes, your Ali Asghar can't fight with a sword. Sakina is a girl, she's not allowed to fight. But don't worry, Rabab, Ali Asghar will also lay down his life. I will be going there tomorrow asking for water for Ali Asghar. They will not give him water, they will give him an arrow. They will kill him with an arrow. Rabab, Sakina may not be killed, may not have to give her qurbani, her sacrifice on the battlefield of Karbala, but Rabab, Sakina will give her life in the dungeon of Sham. Sakina will be giving her life in the prison of Damascus. So much so that when the caravan was leaving Damascus, Rabab only made one request. She only made one request to the ladies of Damascus, that every night when you go home, before you go home, please come and light a candle. Please light a candle for my Sakina. After the murder of Hussein, I was the only one who was laying nearby to her. I was caressing her and I was sitting with her. She would sleep with me after the murder of her father Hussein. Today even she will be alone in Zindan, in Sijin Damish, in the prison of Damascus. وسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون. Oh Allah, please accept this ibadat from us. Accept our tears. Ya Allah, please let our tears let our tears be a shafa'at by Fatima Zahra alayha salam. Ya Allah, forgive our sins. Give us the strength to remain away from sins. Let us be able to act on the teachings of the Quran and Majid and the Ahlul Bayt. Ya Allah, oh Allah, those who are ill, grant them shifa kamila from their illnesses. Those who are in debt, help them fulfill their debts. Those who are having difficulty with their rizq, with their sustenance, increase their rizq and their sustenance. Oh Allah, grant us God-fearing, pious spouses if we are not married. If we are married, grant us God-fearing, pious children who will be soldiers of the Imam. Let our families, ourselves, be with Imam Sahib al-Amr till the end of our lives. Let us be able to see Zamana al-Dhuhur with our own eyes. Protect our ulama, our mara'ajah who are serving while the Imam is in occultation. And Ya Allah, for the sake of this month of Muharram, we beg you, Ya Allah, to send our Imam quickly and send him so that injustices will end throughout the world. Oppression will end. Rabbana taqabbal minna. إنك أنت السميع العليم. ماتم حسين أتمية الحسينية. يا حسين يا حسين يا حسين